Technology and education have become so intertwined that one is scarcely able to think of one without the other. In fact, technology standards have been incorporated into teacher accreditation, and technology use is expected at all levels, in every classroom, traditional or online. This review will provide some historical perspective and provide us with some ethical questions to consider as we move forward toward the inevitable growth and expansion of technology in education. I'm Jane Honeycutt, and this is Technology Review. According to the Associated Press, the Los Angeles Unified School District has developed a plan to put an iPad in the hands of each of their 650,000 students at a cost of $1 billion. However, an embarrassing glitch occurred when the first round of tablets went out. Instead of solving math problems or doing English homework as envisioned, more than 300 Los Angeles Unified School District students quickly cracked the security settings, started tweeting and posting on Facebook, and playing video games. Both critics and supporters of the program began questioning whether the school district officials were being hasty or overreaching in their attempt to distribute an iPad to every student and teacher at the district's more than 1,000 campuses by next year. It doesn't seem like there was much planning that went into this strategy, said Renee Hobbs, director of the Harrington School of Communication and Media at the University of Rhode Island. That's where the debacle began. It is crucial to spend extensive time drawing students into a discussion of using iPads responsibly before handing them out. And of course, a firewall that cannot be breached easily should have been installed, obviously. The students themselves unanimously agreed that the school district security setup was laughably weak. It was so easy, said freshman Carlos Espinoza. They kind of should have known that this would happen, said Espinoza's friend Maria Aguilera. We're high school students after all. I mean, come on. Officials quickly confiscated the devices and put a freeze on using them off campus, promising to improve security settings. The move itself was touted as a means of leveling the academic playing field in a public school system where 80% of the families come from low incomes. Equal access to cutting-edge technology for everyone, not just the wealthy, was the premise behind all of this. But concerns quickly arose. Who pays if a student drops the $678 gadget in the toilet or leaves it on a bus? How can this help students if students aren't allowed to use the technology when they're at home? Since the tablet is only as good as the software, how good is that? Unfortunately, no program adequately supports English as a second language in an area where 73% of the students are Hispanic. This tale forces us to ask the question, are we in a situation in which education is being commercialized? Is there any evidence that the iPad enhances instruction, or is this a commercial venture that mostly benefits Apple, which has found a tremendous market for its product? My next story comes to you from Pennsylvania, and it involves the problem of sexting, which has now become a part of our lexicon. 1 in 5 teens has electronically transmitted explicit photos of themselves. 1/3 have received photos such as this. In Pennsylvania, 6 Pennsylvania teens faced felony child pornography charges. 3 girls were charged with manufacturing and distributing child porn, and 3 boys were charged with possession as a result of the girls having sent explicit photos of themselves to those boys. As it turns out, a minor who transmits a sexually explicit photo of themselves, according to many state laws, is manufacturing and distributing child pornography. The question is now before the legislators, should minors face felony punishment for making stupid mistakes? As it is, they would have a felony charge on their record, and so at this point, legislators in Pennsylvania are debating whether or not to reduce those charges to misdemeanors. My last story comes to you from the professional world and involves a hospital worker in Mississippi who was terminated after responding to a tweet from Governor Haley Barbour. The governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour, had used Twitter to talk about his state's dire fiscal situation and asked for feedback from the public on ways to cut costs. One of the returned tweets was, "Schedule regular medical exams like everybody else, instead of paying UMC employees overtime to do it when clinics are usually closed." The management of the hospital was displeased because the employee violated HIPAA and internal policies by revealing that the governor had been a patient. The employee was fired. The employee may never have considered that her use of social media might be a violation. Employees often think that their social media pages and comments are none of their employer's business. But business leaders say that they have a right to know how employees are portraying their companies online. If an employee makes a defamatory statement on a social media site, it is possible that his or her employer could be held liable for those statements if the employee was acting within the scope of his employment. I have the right to say whatever I want to say. That doesn't always apply in the context of the employer-employee relationship in the private sector. Even in the public sector, you still don't have a bubble of protection around you. I think as we all contemplate these three stories, it's important to consider that the common thread here is just thinking carefully through before we take action, whether it's in a school district that hopes to help its students and but then forgets the unintended consequences that come along with that, not to mention the tremendous cost. When we look at sexting and tweeting, it would at once seem obvious, but when you're looking at young people, they're not thinking about, in both cases really, the individuals believe that what they are doing is private somehow, that the tweet to the governor was between the woman and the governor, the sexting is between the girl and the boy, when in fact it's very, very public, and in the case of sexting, illegal, and even in the case of tweeting, what she did was not legal. And so we tend to forget that these things that are right at our fingertips are not like the devices we once had. They become instantly public and at a cost.